Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, here we go again. We have ourselves another cheap plumber who's doing some goofy stuff that I think is very interesting and I want to show you. So, what happened? Well, you have a house that's being flipped and resold. Totally normal, totally common. We're not even going to get into the conversation of flipped homes. But I do see that a lot of people will tend to go with the cheapest contractor whenever they're flipping houses, right? And we all know that you can look for somebody who's fast or cheap or does good work, but you can't have all three. You can only pick two, right? It's an old triangle that for years everybody's always talked about. The people who are going to be doing things cheap and good usually are not very fast, right? The people who are going to be doing things good and fast aren't usually very cheap. And on top of that, if you have somebody who's fast and cheap, they're not going to be very good. These are all very common tropes in the industry of construction. I'm sure you've all have heard this at some point or another. So when it comes down to it, as a homeowner or a purchaser of any service, you got to come up with which of those two do you prioritize the most. I generally will go towards cheap and quality, so I don't really care too much about the speed. But if I have to worry about how fast something gets done, I would rather it be good and quick. So I'm okay paying a little bit more for quality. A lot of the times whenever you have these investment properties though, most of these people, they want to be in and out because the longer that property sits, the more money it ends up costing them, whether that's in interest for the loan or maybe unexpected expenses or just the factor of holding it and keeping you from getting your money from when you sell it. So a lot of these guys, they'll usually go with the cheapest, fastest contractor, and we just talked about it, so that means that it's probably not going to be very good, right? So in this particular circumstance, it looked like they had hired some relatively good quality contractors, and they did a pretty good job doing whatever else they were supposed to do, such as like the flooring and the drywall. And for some reason, most flipped homes, the floors always end up getting jacked up. Not sure exactly why that's a thing, but just about every single house that I go into that's flipped, there's almost always a problem with the floors. So I don't know if maybe they're all just using the same guy and that same guy just can't get his act together. So let's talk about what actually happened, right? So we had a pressure tank that's installed. We've discussed pressure tanks previously on this channel. Basically, the short and simple of it is, it's that big blue thing that you'll usually see with a well that's going to supply most of the pressure to the home, right? And by most, I mean the pump's really what pressurizes it. It's just what maintains the pressure to push the water through the house. So with these systems, you're going to have air up top, water in the bottom, and a bladder in between. Now, the pump will be calibrated to cycle at a specific pressure. Now, generally, you'll see a 20-point swing, and the most common pressure settings that you'll see in our area are 30-50 or 40-60. If you have an older house, you might see a 20-40 switch, but I haven't seen one of those in probably 2 years. They're very rare, very old. Most of them have been upgraded by now to something a little bit more modern, such as like a 40-60 switch. So whenever you get a pressure switch, which is a little gray box that's on the well tank itself, which we can see over here, the switch will be factory set. Now, these factory set switches, you don't have to adjust them when they come out of the box, but you should test to make sure that they're actually doing what they're supposed to do. So whenever you have a 40-60 switch, that means that the air pressure in the pressure tank needs to be 2 points below the cut-on. What is the cut-on? That's going to be the 40 PSI mark, right? So that's going to be where the pump will actually engage. There's going to be a spring in the back of the system that's actually going to turn the pump on, and then it'll pump until it gets to 60 PSI, and then the pump will turn itself off. So this will constantly happen. You'll have a slight ebb and flow over and over. But most modern well tanks are going to be set expecting the installer to put in a 40-60 switch. What does that mean though? So when they have these tanks built, they're going to pre-charge them with a certain volume of air. That certain volume of air is almost always 38 PSI. Sometimes you have to adjust it, right? Let's just say you want to install a 30-50 switch. You need to lower the air pressure in that pressure tank to 28, not 38. And the reason why is, if we watch over here, what's going to happen is, as the water's flowing and flowing and flowing, the pressure will continue to drop. But remember, your cut-on is 40 PSI. Your cut-on in this particular circumstance is going to be 30 PSI because they put the wrong switch. So if you have the wrong switch set for 30-50 and the pressure tank's brand new and you have not adjusted the pressure, what will happen is as that water goes down and down and down and down, the air pressure will keep the pressure up above 30, so the pump never actually switches on until everything bottoms out and hits 0, at which point the pump will turn on. So what does that mean though? What usually will happen is you'll get a very violent shake in the pipes. You run the risk of the pipe itself breaking, maybe potentially having other issues such as noise. Nobody likes to hear rattling, but the most common problem that I see is that you're going to see a massive surge in the pressure. So you'll be taking a shower, the water will bottom and it'll shoot right back up, and it'll be very inconvenient and not very pleasurable. It's a very easy solution, but it's something that happens a lot whenever you get somebody who doesn't really know exactly what they're doing. So you may be asking, how do we fix this problem? Well, the easiest answer is you just put your finger on the Schrader valve, which is the little valve that's on top of the pressure tank, release the pressure, right? As you release the pressure tank will start to work the way that it's supposed to. And the reason why is once you get to 28 PSI, now you're at the correct setting for the 30-50 switch. So in this particular circumstance, they installed a 30-50 switch thinking that they put in a 40-60 switch. Not a good thing to do at all. And why I can make that claim is once you pull off the cap onto the pressure switch, you'll see that it says 40-60. Well, if it says 40-60 on the sticker, the guy probably thought that it was actually a 40-60 switch. But if you check it, and how you check it, you just hook a hose up to it, let it cycle, you can see by watching the pressure gauge, where is the pressure going? So we were able to visually see that it starts at 30 PSI, kicks off at 50 PSI. So that's how we know it's a 30-50 switch. So this is a fairly easy thing, right? It doesn't happen very often, but I do see this a lot in flipped homes. I think it's very important that if you're purchasing a flipped home or if you're going to be flipping a house, that you do your research on who the contractor is and make sure you check their work, right? If you're paying that guy to put in a 40-60 switch and he actually puts in a 30-50 switch, you're not getting what you expected. You're not getting what you paid for, and you're probably not going to be as pleased because the pressure will be lower, right? If you're a buyer purchasing a home that's being flipped, it's very important to make sure that you're actively looking at these systems to make sure that they're functioning the way that they're supposed to function and they're working in good order so that you don't run into any problems when you move into the house. Now, obviously, inspecting a system is not going to give you a warranty or any other kind of like system guarantee into the future for perpetuity. It's just going to be something of like, hey, right now it's working, it's doing what it's supposed to do. But it's important to make sure you catch those things before you close, you move in, and then now all of a sudden you're calling a plumber or you're calling somebody out there to come fix whatever's going on. Very simple solution, but I see it happen a lot on flipped houses. So again, be careful. If you gained any value out of this, if you found this interesting in any way, hit that like button, hit subscribe. I have more videos posted every day in the world of lawn and septic, and I look forward to talking to you guys tomorrow.